Hello, Flandy friends. Today we're going to be looking at the first 4 episodes of Netflix's Shadow and Bone Season 2. Fair warning, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you do so before going further. Now, before we dive into 2, I'm going to give you a very brief summary of Season 1 to kind of get you caught up as there's a lot going on. In Season 1, we are introduced to 2 main plots. The first being that the Crows, gangsters and overall ne'er-do-wells from Ketterdam, cheat their way into a high-paying contract to track down someone known as a Sun Summoner. See, in this world there are people called Grisha, who practice what is called the small science, and are broken up into 3 categories, each with their own subcategories. You have Korpalki, which deal with bodies. Healers heal, heart renders damaged organs, and tailors can change a person's features. Material Key, which are broken up into Doras, who control physical objects, and Akemi, who control chemicals. Then there are the Ithralki, which have Squallers who control the wind, Inferni who burn you, and Tide Makers who will drown you. There's a special type of Ithralki called the Shadow Summoner, who does what the name says and uses shadows as their weapons. Long ago, there's a super bad one called the Darkling, who created the Fold, a giant space in between nations that's basically a no man's land. Because of the creatures that live within it will murder anyone who go into it. Finally, there is the Sun Summoner, who summons light. While there has never been a recorded Sun Summoner in history, it turns out the main character Alina is in fact one, and is our second plot point of the season. She gets found out and introduced to the leader of the Grisha army, Alexander Morozova, who is a shadow summoner and is totally not the original Darkling, living out an immortal life and trying to further his own goals while hiding in plain sight. Oh, wait. Long story short, Alexander gets revealed to be the original Darkling, Alina gets an amplifier in the form of a staghorn, and she manages to trap Alexander in the Fold while the Crows end up helping her out instead of kidnapping her. The season ends with her and her bestie Mal traveling away to foreign lands to find a way to stop the Fold, and the Crows returning back home to Ketterdam, unsuccessful in their original mission of kidnapping the Sun Summoner, but with a lovely crown jewel in their pocket to make up for their trouble. Now that's all for Season 1, so let's take a look into Season 2 and see what it's got in store for us. Alina Starkov, played by Jessie May Lee, is back as our favorite Sun Summoner, and is played with visions of the Darkling, played ever so deliciously evil by Ben Barnes. He is back and expanding the Fold and taking over more areas as he goes. She and Mal Orostev, played by Archie Renault, are on their way to try and find the Sea Whip so that Alina can use it as a second amplifier and hopefully be strong enough to finally tear down the Fold. Switching places, we head over to Ketterdam, where we check in with the Crows from last season. And I'll just go ahead and say it, while I love the world of the Grishaverse and enjoy seeing the Grisha do their thing, it is the down and dirty skullduggery of the Crows that I've really grown fond of. The bastard of the barrel himself, Kaz Brecker, played by Freddie Carter, is perfectly cast for this role. I will admit, I have a weakness for characters who are actually as smart as they think they are, and he proves this time and time again in the few episodes, albeit with some caveats. Next, we have Inej Gaffa, the Wraith, played by Amita Suman, who brings to life the stealthy killer in all her knife-wielding glory. Rounding out the trio is everyone's favorite sharpshooter, Jesper Fahe, played by Kit Young. The trio are back from their adventure with the Sun Summoner and quickly find themselves in hot water as it seems they've been framed for murder by a man named Pekka Rollins. I'm not going to lie here. It wasn't until I looked up the name for this review that I learned it was in fact Pekka and not Pecker. Yep. Pecker. Pekka is in fact the self-proclaimed king of the barrel, as he owns and controls the majority of it. So once again, we have 2 plot points, and while I have not read the books, I have heard that the Crows weren't originally a part of this one, as they have their own series. And that kind of makes sense, because these plot lines could not be any more different. On one hand, you have Alina dealing with the Grisha and these mystical amplifiers and trying to tear down this Fold, and all these really world-ending stakes that are going on. And on the other hand, you have these 3 criminals trying to clear their name and wage a war for control over the barrel. They just don't quite mesh up, though it does look by the end of these 4 episodes that I'm reviewing today that their paths will cross again. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. I will say I absolutely love the first season of Shadow and Bone, but I do wish I'd rewatched it before watching this, as there are a lot of characters and a lot of smaller plot points. And I will admit, there are a lot of times when someone is introduced and it's supposed to be a big reveal or a big emotional moment, and I have absolutely no idea who they are. The thing is, though, despite that fact, I'm still really enjoying myself. One character that I forgot about was Nina, the Heartrender, who gets reintroduced in the first episode, and while it took me a bit to remember her storyline from the first season, she's grown to be one of my favorite characters this time around. We are also introduced to some new characters, one of which I'm sure is going to be a fan favorite, the privateer Stormhund, aka Prince Nikolai Landstoff. One of those rare royal types who prefers the common life of adventure to that of riches and glory. Throughout the first half of this series, we focus on Alina getting a second amplifier, this time from a creature known as a Stormwhip, which is essentially a very quick sea serpent-like creature. Once defeated, it further amplifies her power. Unfortunately, not so much that she's able to tear down the fold, and it looks like she's going to be in need of a third one from a creature known as the Firebird. While we do get to see Alina and Mal's relationship grow a bit more in this, we'll also see Alina enter into a faux marriage with Prince Nikolai as a way to keep her safe and to help ease some of the tension between Grisha and the non-Grisha, who want to see the Grisha dead for their unknowing allying with the Darkling. Speaking of which, the Darkling is doing his best to rally up an army to conquer the land. He has a bit of a Magneto vibe, trying to focus on Grisha rights and to stop them from being hunted down, but also being an absolute monster in the process. Also sort of being the reason why they're hunted down in the first place. He is joined this time by two shadow beings he has constructed from Murstoff, another form of the small science which is considered an abomination, and it has to do with the creation of life. It is the same thing he used to create the fold and the creatures inside it, but now that it's tied to him, it has taken a toll on his body, and he is searching for a way to remedy the affliction, while also trying to get his hands back on Alina. The two share a bit of a link after the events of the first season, where they were bound together with the Amplifier, and even though the Amplifier was removed from his hand, fragments remain, and there is still a connection there that he is trying to utilize. Finally, we've got the Crow storyline, which is somehow the least world-impacting, but to me, still the more interesting. Kaz and his people, along with Nina the Heartrender and Wylan the Chemist, are waging war against P.E.K.K.A. Kaz has his moments where he does the stupid thing and lets vengeance consume him, but to my delight is resolved somewhat quickly. I hate the trope of characters who keep something from others, which will inevitably get them all hurt or in trouble. So I'm glad that it was at least handled in an efficient way, and we're given a rare scene where Kaz shows his more vulnerable side to Inej. There's a really good scene where Kaz gets absolutely manhandled in a fight, but he still manages to take the men out to prove a point, and ends up with a small army of his own to wage war with. We get to see Inej fight an assassin with equally good skills as her, and we get a cute romance between Wylan and Jesper. All things that I thoroughly enjoyed. There's so much going on this season that even with these first 4 episodes, it would take me a while to detail every one of them. What I will say is that so far, I'm thoroughly enjoying the season. I have heard rumors that we may be getting a Crow standalone series based on their books, which I would be thrilled by, as their setting, while lower fantasy compared to the rest, is just by far more compelling to me. The main plot for the Sun Summoner versus the Shadow Summoner hasn't really picked up too much by this point, though I have a feeling that is going to escalate quickly in the remaining episodes. With Mal being taken away from Alina, and with Alina and Nikolai on the run from the Darkling, it now seems set up to be a race to the Firebird to see who can acquire the power first and what that means for the rest of the world. Hopefully we'll find that out in the remaining 4 episodes of the series and won't be left on a cliffhanger. Check back later this week for part 2 of this review as we see if the setup so far is going to pay off in the end. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please give me a like and subscribe, as it really helps my small channel to grow. Until then, I'll see you next time, Flanny friends. Bye!